Hey there, Mrs. Edstrom here. We are going to jump forward a little bit in our notes to page 20 if you're using the packet with me. And our topic today, our title of our notes is adding and subtracting fractions. We're kind of going to do both the adding and subtracting together because it's the same process. So go ahead and fill out the date at the top here. And we're going to write in our essential question, which is, how do I add and subtract fractions? So go ahead and write that in. How do I add and subtract fractions? So we're looking at that process. So hopefully you've seen this before, you've worked on this before, but we're going to kind of walk through this one more time here. So we're looking at this first problem, 1/2 plus 1/5. When you are adding and subtracting fractions, there is something that you need before you can add or subtract anything. What is that? Do you know? It is the denominator. These denominators need to be the same. You can think of it like pizzas if you want. You can think of it like pizzas. You don't have to write this part down. But if we have two pizzas and one is cut in half and one is cut into fifths, let's see if I can make this into roughly equal fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want to add 1/2 plus 1/5. We're looking at two completely different sized things to add them together. And we want to know what part of a whole pizza we are eating, right? There's a big difference there. So we need to talk about pieces of pizza that are the same size. So instead of talking about just 1/2, we're going to make the numbers in the fraction bigger so that we can have the same denominator. We can still eat 1/2 of pizza, for example, but we might eat 2 pieces because it's split into fourths. So we're going to look at some different size pieces by making our common denominator. So what would our common denominator be with 2 and 5? Well, when finding our common denominator, we want to look at our multiples. So 2 would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. 5 would be 5, 10, 15. So we can see that they have 10 in common. So I want to get denominators of 10. So I'm going to multiply 1/2 by 5/5. Remember from chapter 1, we talked about multiplying a fraction by the same numerator and denominator means that we're multiplying by 1, and that means that we still have 1/2. So when I multiply 5 times 1, I get 5, and when I multiply 5 times 2, I get 10. We know that 5/10 is the same fraction as 1/2. It's just instead of talking about cutting the pizza into 2 pieces, we're cutting it into 10 and we're eating 5 of them. That's just one way to look at it. So 1/5, if I want my denominator to be 10, I have to multiply by 2. If I want to keep it 1/5, that means I have to multiply the numerator by that same number. So I have 1 times 2 for 2, and I have 5 times 2 for 10, and we are still adding these fractions. Now we are talking about pizzas that are cut into tenths. We're talking about the same size pieces. We have 5/10 plus 2/10. That means that we have 7/10. When we're talking about fractions, the denominator tells us what size the pieces are. The numerator tells us how many there are. So we never want to add those denominators because they just tell us the size of the piece. And we're not going to change the size. We're just going to keep the size the same. There we go. We're going to follow that same process for our subtraction. So when we look at this, 8/9 minus 2/3, when we find our common denominator, the number that 9 and 3 have in common, and remember, it can't be smaller than one of the numbers. It has to be the larger of the numbers, is 9 because I can multiply 3 times 3 to get a denominator of 9. That means I need to multiply by numerator by 3 as well. So 2 times 3, that is 6. I can keep my 8/9 as it is because now I have denominators that are the same. Remember, the denominator is the size of the piece, so we're still going to have 9ths. But we have 8 of them, and we're going to subtract 6 of them to give us 2/9 left over. I'm going to take a jump down to the summary here. We're going to come back to that next problem there. We're going to jump down to this summary here. We're going to look at the process. So we're going to make a process for solving equations when we're adding or subtracting fractions. So the first thing that you're going to look for is your common denominator. So remember, we have to add fractions that are the same size, that are pieces the same size. So we've got to look for that common denominator. The second step is that we are going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator. Let me make sure I spell this right. Denominator. There we go, denominator. Multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. And remember, this is to get the common denominator. So whatever number we have to multiply by in order to get, oh, there you go, to get that common denominator. So up top here, we had to multiply by 3/3, or we had to multiply by 2/2 or 5/5 so that we got the value of the denominator we wanted. That's what we're saying in step 2. Step 3 is to add or subtract if it's a subtraction. The numerators only. Really big to remember, we're only subtracting those numerators, not the denominators. And then you want to check at the end to reduce. Can you reduce? And if you can, you are going to need to. So go ahead, take a moment, walk through these steps on this next problem. Look for your common denominator. What is that common denominator going to be? Then you're going to multiply your numerator and denominator to get that common denominator. So we're going to multiply, I'll help you out here to set this up. You're going to multiply that first fraction by something on the top and bottom to get the denominator. And we're going to multiply the second one. Because I can't multiply 6 by anything to get 9, so we're going to have a number bigger than that. And that will give you your new fractions that you can add. So go ahead and start filling this out. What do we multiply? What's our common denominator here? Multiples of 9 are 9, 18, 27. Multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18. Looks like we have one the same. So we're going to look for denominators that are going to be 18. What do we need to multiply 9 by? What do we need to multiply 6 by? That will give us our new numerators. Go ahead and finish this problem out. Pause the video, finish it, and then come back to the video. Alrighty, at this point you should be done with this problem. So if you haven't finished it yet, pause the video and solve it on your own. Then check your answer. Alrighty, so let's look at the answer. To get 18 from 9, we have to multiply by 2. So we're going to multiply the numerator. 2 times 4 is 8. To get 6 to 18, we're multiplying by 3. Same thing in the numerator. 1 times 3 is 3. Now we are just adding our numerators. 8 plus 3 is 11. So hopefully you got 11/18 as well.